So, I don't know if you guys expected me to say something bad about this because it's not a Weaver product, but I've got to say the quality is pretty good, on par with the Weaver heaters. I wouldn't say that it's better or worse. The packaging is really good, and although I haven't tested it, I am fairly confident that this is probably going to work just as well as any of my Weaver heaters. That being said, I don't get anything if you buy one of these. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Lowered Expectations. Thanks for lowering your expectations and hanging out with me here. I do appreciate it. Today's video is a very special one because not only are we going to be tearing apart this brand new 8 kilowatt diesel heater, but we are going to talk about some of the confusion surrounding different heater sizes and different heater outputs. This is going to probably get a little bit confusing. I'm going to do my best to explain this. It's not going to be in depth, but we do need to talk about it before we actually talk about what is in this box. You guys just heard me say that this is an 8 kilowatt heater, and that isn't exactly the truth. Based on the numbers provided by the manufacturer, I'm going to say that this thing is probably a 7 kilowatt heater, but now we need to talk about some of the other manufacturers' claims. What you guys are about to see will probably be a few minutes of footage of me explaining the differences between some of the sizes of heaters as well as the output. For me, this is probably going to be a couple of hours of bloopers and even more hours of editing to make it something that you guys can even somewhat understand. So let's just get into it. In general, there are 2 kilowatt, 5 kilowatt, and 8 kilowatt heaters, or at least that's what the manufacturers tell us. The reality of this situation goes something like this. Here in my hands, I have a heater from Weaver. It is a small body 2 kilowatt heater. So some manufacturers actually make a physically smaller 2 kilowatt heater, and this apparently puts out about 1.8 kilowatts. I haven't done the test exactly myself, but that does seem to be somewhere in the ballpark. So this is a 2 kilowatt heater. However, Weaver and a few other manufacturers make a smaller body 2 kilowatt heater, but many manufacturers actually just downrate their 5 kilowatt heater. So they basically turn the fan slower and they also feed it less fuel to actually make a 2 kilowatt heater. And that is perfectly legitimate, but you end up with a giant heater that only puts out 2 kilowatts. If it wasn't confusing enough already, this is where it starts to get really bad because this heater is referred to as a 5 kilowatt by most manufacturers. However, if you do the math with the pump running at 5 hertz, this is only capable of putting out 4 kilowatts. Some controllers do allow you to crank the pump speed or pump hertz all the way up to 8. However, if you have one of those and you have tried, you will know that it makes a whole lot of smoke, builds up a whole lot of soot, and is going to make a whole lot of carbon monoxide. So that is highly not recommended. You remember when I told you the part about the 5 kilowatt was confusing? Well, yeah, that was just preparing you for the confusion of the 8 kilowatt because the heater that I told you most manufacturers sell as a 5 kilowatt, this was actually sold to me as an 8 kilowatt. Weaver and every other manufacturer does this, including MaXpeedingRods, all of the no-name brands on Amazon, AliExpress, Alibaba. All of them will sell you a heater and call it an 8 kilowatt, and more than likely it's actually putting out about 4 kilowatts. Some manufacturers will include an ECU that actually pumps a little bit more fuel, but these are not capable of producing 8 kilowatts, period. The pump and the ECU are simply not capable of delivering that much fuel. And if you try to deliver anywhere near that amount of fuel, they will build up a huge amount of carbon and just work really crappy. This is actually where the story starts to get really interesting, but equally confusing, and also where MaXpeedingRods and this other company that I can't pronounce actually get involved in the story. This is a small body 2 kilowatt heater that uses a 60 millimeter hose, and the exhaust port is about 1 inch. This, as we have discussed, is sometimes called a 2 kilowatt, sometimes a 5 kilowatt, and sometimes called an 8 kilowatt. It's not really any of those things, and it has a 75 millimeter outlet that connects to a 75 millimeter hose. It also has a 1 inch exhaust. Now what we're going to do is take a look in this box. Supposedly what we have is a heater that consumes enough fuel to actually be 7 kilowatts. They say that it's 8 kilowatts, and it supposedly has a 90 millimeter hose. So let's get in there, take a look, then we're going to rip it apart, take some measurements. Should be interesting. I did pay for this with my own money, and this is not an endorsement. This might be an absolute piece of garbage. I don't know. I'm going to test it in some upcoming videos, but for now, we're going to take a look at it and we're going to tear it apart. So let's get in here. Okay, that looks like that's actually looks like a little bit better fuel tank than most of them come with. It has a threaded fitting on the top. That is interesting. The cap seems to be what everything else comes with. It is a vented cap. A few people have asked me about these vented caps. Yes, you can get water in through there. Absolutely. So keep that in mind. I am personally not terribly interested in these accessories, but we have an owner's manual. I'm not even going to bother reading through this right now, but it looks to be, yeah, actually has some colored photos, has a breakdown of the chamber. It actually looks substantially different, so this should be interesting. I'm guessing this is wrong. We have our mounting plate. I do have to say this is packaged quite well. It is wrapped in this high density foam stuff. Ooh, that's an interesting color. Kind of looks like it's almost faded from the sun. Inside of the foam, we have a remote fob that looks exactly the same as the Viver Bluetooth fob. This is the controller itself. We have a fuel pump sitting in here. I don't think this is ideal packaging. It has somebody's hair on it. Yeah, and it's just jammed down in here. It is very likely okay, but the end of it poked a hole through the bottom of the foam here. There's some scuffing marks on here from where the pump was hitting, as well as here. But that's far from the heart. I am definitely not concerned about that. I'm going to do much worse than that to this heater, I guarantee you. Let's cut open the accessories box and see what we have in here. It looks to be a higher quality exhaust pipe. Oh, maybe not. It's just a different method of making it. I know most people probably aren't interested in this, but some people will be, so I'm going to show you guys. Most tubing like this is actually seam welded. So this is basically a piece of stainless steel that is a flat sheet, and they roll it up and then they weld it together. So you can actually see the weld seam goes along the whole length of the pipe. I just spent probably 5 minutes trying to explain this tubing, and I'm not sure exactly how to do it. Basically, this is one piece of material that is wrapped around. Every inch, every 3/4 of an inch approximately, there is a seam. And if this was pressurized at all, it would leak. Maybe I'll actually do a test, but also it is quite jagged because of the way they have to cut this. It is quite jagged. You can see there is a saw cut there, or actually like a cutoff wheel cut there. And I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up, but this is quite jagged. I think this is probably a lot more flexible than the stuff that comes with most heaters. Is it a good trade-off? I don't know. We have the muffler that looks like every other muffler, which leads me to believe that the exhaust is the same size. I find that kind of strange. We have a wiring harness that will definitely come in handy. We will need it. It has the same pump connector, same ECU connector, and same fuse holder that all of the other ones that I've ever seen have. Nothing fancy or special here. It does have a little bit different connector for the controller itself. We have some of this green line that everybody loves so much. Tell me how much you hate this in the comment section. I like it so much I bought 30 meters. That's 98 feet. We have this giant vent, which actually looks like really nice quality. I quite enjoy that. We have this giant tube, which is apparently 90 millimeters. This is basically the same stuff that comes with all of the other heaters, except it's a little larger, and for some reason they've decided not to make it black on the outside. Most of the stuff is black, and this is kind of a weird cardboardy color. Next up, we've got a bag of accessories. I'm not going to pull everything out, but we've got our typical filter silencer thingy. We've got some giant hose clamps, which look like pretty decent quality actually. We've got this filter that is pretty interesting. It is a pretty hot rod looking filter. It actually has removable ends. It looks like, yeah, it has removable ends so that you can actually clean the filter out. These end caps are actually billet aluminum. Look at that nonsense. That is black anodized billet aluminum with a screen mesh. That is kind of ridiculous. I was about to take some measurements, and off camera I decided to take a look at what it says on the side of this pump. And I had an interesting moment, because what I see here is 12 volt 22 milliliter, which means it pumps 22 milliliters in 1,000 cycles, which is the exact same pump that is on my 2 kilowatt as well as on my 8 kilowatt heater. So they're going to have to cycle this really fast to actually get 7 kilowatts. To get 8 kilowatts, they would have to cycle this pump this fast. And it is in fact 90 millimeters, 90.35 millimeters, which is 3.5 inches. The exhaust outlet is still 1 inch. So the exhaust outlet is 23.87 millimeters. The inlet is 24.63 or 0.963 inches. The measuring device that I'm using for this will be this measuring tape that reads in inches, so that's what you guys get. The 2 kilowatt heater is 4.5 inches wide, 4.5 inches wide. The 5 to 8 kilowatt heater is another inch wide at almost 5.5 inches wide. And the whatever MaXpeedingRods is also about 5.5 inches wide. So the same width. As far as height goes, we are about the same height here. We can tell just by looking at them. And the 2 kilowatt is, again, 4.5 inches. In length, the 2 kilowatt is about 13.5 inches long all the way from the inlet to the outlet. The 258 kilowatt heater is 15 inches long from inlet to outlet. And the MaXpeedingRods, whatever this is 15.5 inches. So another half inch, I believe. Yes, that's right. Another half inch longer. Now, let's get into this thing. I want to see the bits. Just a quick side note here, folks. I paid for this heater with my own money, not because I needed a new heater. I have plenty of heaters, but because I knew that you guys would want to see it. So if you appreciate me doing this, please remember to leave a thumbs up on the video, and you can always subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. If you're interested in purchasing a heater, Viver makes perfectly good heaters. There will be affiliate links in the description below, as well as a discount code. If you want to purchase one of these MaXpeedingRod heaters, you can purchase one of those on Amazon. I don't get anything from it, but I'm sure they're perfectly good heaters as well. You guys let me know in the comments section, am I weird for being really excited about tearing this apart? Haven't even fired it up yet, and the first thing I want to do is open it up and see what is in here. So, cover comes off in exactly the same way as my other heaters. I'm going to set this stuff over here so that it's not in my way. That ECU looks like the Bluetooth ECU in the Viver heaters. I think it even has the same logo. However, it's black instead of blue. So maybe that tells us something. Okay, heat sensor looks the same. Glow plug looks the same. The diagram in the manual is wrong. This is not 3 pieces. It shows it in different pieces, which I kind of expected. So let's pull the grommet out here and pull this out of the body. Is it going to come out easily? Maybe if we remove the rubber from the bottom, it will. Throw that in the box. To try to avoid scratching everything up, I'm going to try using these zip ties, which are plastic. So we should be able to jam them in there and release those latches or clips or whatever you want to call them. And then presto, it actually worked. There we go. Same as the other ones, just a little bit larger. Okay. Let's get this ECU off. That was pretty tight, unnecessarily tight. Set that aside. Release the glow plug connector. Release the motor connector. Everything's coming apart pretty easy so far. Release the heat sensor connector. And just like on the other heaters, they've got this weird claspy thing that you push together and the ECU comes off. Yeah, this looks just like the Viver Bluetooth controller. I think that's even the same logo. Let's remove the fan now and see if it is different than the 5 kilowatt fan. I think maybe it's the same thing. I guess that's one way we can tell if it fits. I have a 5 kilowatt gasket. We can set it on. Yeah, this looks exactly the same from the inside as a 5 kilowatt. This is a gasket for a 5 and 8 kilowatt heater, and let's see if it sits in place here. It sure looks like it's the same thing to me. I am fairly confident that this glow plug will be the same thing as well, but let's remove it and have a look. We need to do that to remove the chamber anyway. Okay, it looks like I didn't break this one. That's fun. Okay, somebody was telling me in the comment section today that every glow plug they've taken out has been loose. I think it was Martin. Yeah, so this one was quite loose. It looks like it was test fired, but this is the same plug that comes in all the rest of them, as far as I can tell. This is the part that I'm most excited about. Based on what I can see, it looks like this is the same chamber that comes in the 5 and the 8. Part of me wants it to be different because that would be pretty cool, but part of me wants it to be the same because that means it's actually available. So that would be nice. So enough talk, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna take some measurements, but I'm gonna say that this is exactly the same as my other 5/8 kilowatt heaters. This is a brand new burn chamber that I got from AliExpress. It clearly says 5 kilowatt on the back of it here. And this one doesn't have any markings whatsoever. This is out of the MaXpeedingRods heater. So let's take some measurements. Outside of the tube is, so basically 52 millimeters. In inches, that is 2 inches. Again, 2 inches, 52 millimeters. So now overall length, the length of the chamber or the burn tube itself from the flange to the end of the tube is exactly 112 millimeters. And this one is again 112 millimeters. I don't see any differences whatsoever. With the two heat exchangers now stacked side by side, it is pretty obvious that the 8 kilowatt MaXpeedingRods one is definitely bigger than the 5/2/8 kilowatt version that I have purchased from Viver. So now let's take a measurement of the depth of the burn chamber, or rather the heat exchanger itself. I'm going to be measuring from the bottom, which is a little bit of a dome shape. And so this isn't going to be perfectly accurate, but I will try to give you guys the closest measurement that I can get. We're going to start off with inches, and this is about 5 3/4 inches to the gasket surface, which is about 145 millimeters. Again, pretty approximate numbers because of the shape of the bottom of the heat exchanger. The MaXpeedingRods 8 kilowatt is almost 7 inches. We're going to call it 6 3/4. It's a little over 6 3/4 inches from the bottom to the gasket surface, which is approximately 175 millimeters. Quite the difference. I'm not going to make you guys sit through everything, but I did take some outside measurements, and they are very close to each other except for in the length. The 8 kilowatt version is a little bit bigger than this one in width in a few places, but only a few millimeters. I'm now going to try to fit this fan. I'm almost positive that it's going to fit right on there. But let's try to fit the 8 kilowatt fan onto the 5/2/8 kilowatt heater. And yes, it does match up exactly. I thought these fan housings might actually be a little bit different, but taking a closer look, it looks as though my old one has just seen a whole lot more abuse than this new one. But now we're going to take a closer look and actually take some measurements. I think this fan might be a little bit bigger, but that could be just a deception as well. So as far as height wise, they are the same height. The size of the fan here is 66 millimeters, and again 66 millimeters rather. The outside of the fan 110 and 110. So nothing different there. Let's check the combustion air fan. And again, about 100 millimeters and about 100 millimeters. So yeah, as far as I can tell from all of my measurements, these heaters are exactly the same with the exception of a slightly larger heat exchanger and plastic housing. That is very good news for anyone who owns one of these, because sooner or later you're going to need some parts and you're going to be able to order a 5 or 8 kilowatt fan or glow plug or burn chamber, and you'll be back on your way. If that wasn't the case, you would probably be out of luck because there's not a lot of companies selling these. I'm now going to reassemble this heater off camera, and in the next video about it, we are going to check to see how fast the pump runs. We are going to see how much carbon monoxide it makes. We are going to see how much fuel it consumes, and then we're going to crunch some numbers and figure out if we can get a reasonable number as to what the actual kilowatt output is. Again, I did pay for this with my own money, so if you want to support me, remember to leave a thumbs up on the video. If you're looking for a heater, Viver sells great ones, links in the description below. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.